Good afternoon, all. I'd like to welcome everyone to this meeting of the Boston Art Commission. My name is Alexandra Paul Zotov, and I'm the Public Art Registrar in the Mayor's Office of Arts and Culture. In that capacity, I'm also the administrator of the Art Commission. Let's please take a moment to update our names, pronouns, as well as make sure we're all muted. In accordance with the Commonwealth Massachusetts Executive Order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, we are conducting this meeting virtually. As a reminder, this was extended until 2025. To ensure public access to the deliberations of the Art Commission, the public can join through telephone and video conference. For those of you with us today, this meeting is being recorded and closed captioning is available. You may access it at the bottom of the screen. If you are having trouble locating this button, please chat us for assistance.
Thank you, Paul, and thanks everyone for being here. The Mayor's Office of Arts and Culture and the Boston Art Commission believe that public art is any artwork installed in publicly accessible spaces where they can be experienced by everyone for free. For transparency and community input, we hold these meetings on a monthly basis to discuss public art that's going to be put on public property in Boston. Working together with the Public Art Team and the Mayor's Office of Arts and Culture, the Boston Art Commission is an independent board composed of 2 ex officio and 7 volunteer community members, all appointed by the Mayor. The BAC has exclusive authority to approve and commission artworks intended to be added to the city's collection or placed on city property. The Public Art Team in the Mayor's Office of Arts and Culture facilitates these public meetings of the Art Commission and manages all phases, daily operations, and duties related to public art projects decided on or proposed for city property in collaboration with the BAC, community members, colleagues at the City of Boston, and all of you. And we are joined by some of our colleagues today, Amber Torres, Birgit Worster, and Alexander Paul Zotov, who are staff at the Mayor's Office of Arts and Culture, as well as myself. Please feel free to reach out to us with any questions at bac@boston.gov. We're also joined on our team in doing this work with some consultants who you can see here. They are great collaborators with us in this work. Liza Quinones, who is our mural consultant, Josh Crane, who is our conservation consultant, and Erin Gina, who's our Indigenous Public Art and Cultural Spaces consultant. We are going to move into our director's report. And then we'll come back. We're waiting on a quorum, so I'm just going to share some information until our last commissioner arrives. And speaking of quorum, we are very thankful to Camilo Alvarez for his service to the city and to the Boston Art Commission for many years as a commissioner. We are happy that we'll still be collaborating with him artistically, but he has changed his residence and is no longer a resident of the city of Boston, and so no longer able to serve with us on the Art Commission. Although we're very happy to join someone to our team, Emily Rose Navarro, who is our Transformative Art and Monuments Coordinator, has joined us. She is a Puerto Rican American interdisciplinary multimedia artist. Paul, I think you can go to the next slide. Yep. She is a descendant of self-emancipators, artisans, seamstresses, dancers, fisher people, and farmers. Her work addresses the legacy of colonialism and its impact on the Caribbean diaspora, particularly the transference of ancestral trauma. Born and raised in Mission Hill, she grew up surrounded by her family's blend of cultures, food, celebrations, and spiritual beliefs. She infuses her life, lived experiences, and stories of her family and ancestors into her work. And through her wide-ranging multimedia experience, Emily Rose makes vivid and imaginative work that focuses on healing, memory, and home. Oral stories, historical documents, found objects, and textiles often appear throughout the artist's paintings, drawings, sculptures, and installations. And now we'll share a little bit about projects that we have happening. So projects in fabrication. Project managers Birgit Worster and Amber Torres recently met with the Public Works Chief Engineer Jeffrey Alexis to review the most recent foundation and plaza designs and to discuss the next steps for Journey of My Soul, the legacy of Frederick Douglass, which will include more detailed specifications for structural elements of the memorial, such as details of the book, the attachments, and incorporating community requests to repair the cobblestone on Cabot Street and swap out trees with bushes. The target construction deadline is fall 2025. Call and response radiating safety, which you can see in the image here by Limmer Chief Frazier and Ralph Hummock for Firehouse 42 in Eggleston Square is in the final stages of fabrication. The artists, Lamb Partners, and the fabricators are arranging a site visit to Central Falls in Rhode Island to test the lighting, and the public art team has resumed planning the official unveiling to happen once the piece is installed in late October or early November. The installation timeline for Amulet by Ria Vedro for City Hall Plaza has been tentatively scheduled for spring 2025. Property management has let us know that they will be contracting with Weldon Works to construct the steel base for City Hall, the sculpture program, which should be rotating so that it's ready in time for the artwork to be installed, and will be there for future artworks as well. Other updates, we had a ribbon cutting for the newly renovated Engine 17 Firehouse in Dorchester. We're still working to finalize contracting and anticipate that we'll be able to announce the artist and begin preliminary design for that project this fall. And regarding the Adams Street Library project with artist Priscilla De Carvalho, Tierney Contracting is on site this week taking measurements for all 3 sites so that the artist can begin finalizing fabrication and engineering plans. And I'll also note that in the images on the screen, you can see our Ria Vedro's sculpture amulet for City Hall, which we discussed on the last slide. And we have projects in preliminary design and contracting, but we are very excited on this slide to share with you that we are having a celebration of 3 basketball court murals that have been installed or are being installed now at Malcolm X Park in Roxbury. One of them you'll see in just a moment for accessioning. One of them is complete and 2 of them are almost done. So we will see those likely at the next month's meeting, but we will be celebrating all of them on October 19th, and I hope you can make it. It should be a really fun event. We should have a Splashdot invitation that we may be able to share with you now, if somebody can grab it and drop it into the chat. And do we know if, was Nigel able to join us yet?
He's not here yet, Karen, so why don't you
Not
keep
here yet?
going with your director's
Okay.
report?
Sure, thank you. And with that, we're going to talk about conservation, which is far more exciting than you'd expect. Paul Zotov, our public art registrar, has been leading us in the charge of conservation across the city with some really exciting projects, and you can see some of them described here, but we're going to focus today on some work by conservator Gianfranco Popobene, and he's going to talk to you about some really interesting work he's been doing at Faneuil Hall. Gianfranco?
Hi, can you hear me now? Great.
Yes.
So I think, Paul, you're driving here, so I'll just talk away. I want to thank everybody for allowing me to talk about the project at Faneuil Hall, which I'm sure you're mostly aware began last year. In August of last year, we discovered, or the parks people discovered, that some small tears were forming in the upper left and upper right corner of the painting. And over the course of several months, these kept growing. And one of the great fears, of course, was that they would meet up at some time. And here you can see some details before we started doing the work. This is in September of last year. You can see the tears and the pretty severe distortion of the canvas with the weight of the canvas kind of in gravity pulling on those tears. Next. The first thing we did really was really quick sort of emergency work, which is to stabilize the tears so they wouldn't grow any more than they had already had. And we're talking about 3 or 4 feet of tears here in total on each side. And basically, I went up there, I believe it was September, it was early October, and applied some Japanese paper and a kind of a rabbit skin glue to temporarily fix those tears so they wouldn't grow anymore. And you can see these also these paper tabs sort of in the vertical direction holding everything together while we figured out what we were going to do with the painting. Next. So one of the kind of more amazing and kind of frightful, since we're coming up to Halloween, kind of aspects of the treatment and the project was to basically lower the painting because the problems could not be addressed in situ. We really had to get the painting down to make the necessary repairs. And Maquette Fine Art Services was amazing at the installation of sculptures to get the painting down and then carefully lowering it down to the staging. And here you see their team with ropes all over it, stabilizing it while it came down to the stage level. And the next stage of the project was basically to get it down to the floor level. And for those of you who don't know, we've converted the whole floor of the Great Hall at Faneuil Hall into a workspace, kind of a large-scale laboratory, so to speak, or studio. And we applied with Maquette protective coverings over the wood floor itself so that we could do our work without doing any damage to the floor in the Great Hall. And here you see it just ready in front of the staging, ready to be lowered. This is the kind of tabletop on the floor system that we came up with, layers of plywood and NDO boards screwed down so that they would stay flat and then covered with mylar sheets so that the painting was on a smooth, clean surface. Next slide. Another scary aspect of the treatment was actually lowering it because, again, of the sheer weight of the painting. The painting is a little over 15 feet high by almost 27 feet across, as you can tell by the scale of it with people lowering it. And this was really concerning the stage because at this point we were lowering it and there's nothing much we could do if anything more happened. And the real fear was, would this tear start up again or new ones form? Fortunately, nothing happened. We lowered it very carefully and it was laid face down onto the work surface that we created on the floor. The next stage of the work after we lowered it was basically to remove all the metal tacks that were applied to the edges of the painting when it was last worked on, which was in the early 1990s. And this was a pretty straightforward process, just removing all those tacks so that we could release the stretcher, or in this case, a strainer, the wood frame that holds the whole thing together. We can disassemble it so we'd have complete access to the rest of the painting. Here you see us disassembling the stretcher, removing pieces section by section. We're actually, we examined the painting very carefully, the surface of it before we lowered it. And two things, other than the tears, the painting itself is very stable, no problems with it. And the paint layers are not very thickly applied. There's not thick impasto layers or brush marks. It's quite thinly painted. So we were quite comfortable with using what are ethofoam blocks. They're very soft blocks, which can distribute and dissipate the weight of a person without putting a lot of pressure on it. And here you actually see us beginning, this is my colleague Corinne Long, who's been on the project, starting to remove old patches. You can see little bits of repairs aside from the tears, which are on the far left of the upper portion of the canvas, removing these old patches. One of the aspects of the treatment was that, and here she is removing old patches and repairs and reinforcements that were put along the edges of the painting. One of the questions that was asked was, can you just repair the tears as they are and put the painting back up? Clearly, the canvas is really brittle and weak, and even if we'd repaired them locally, we're pretty guaranteed that new ones would have formed somewhere else, given the weight and the age of the painting. So what we're in the process of doing here is actually preparing it for a complete lining, which is the application of a whole new canvas to the reverse of the painting, so that the whole painting is covered from the back and totally supported when it's reinstalled. Anyways, next slide, and we can show more details of the activities. As I said, in the 1990s, work was done on it, some structural work. The edges were reinforced. It was applied with a heat set adhesive, these strips of canvas along the edges to reinforce it. And here we are just using heat from a warm infrared lamp to just soften the adhesive and to gently pull back those additions that were put on to reinforce the edges. Next slide. Another image of myself on the left and Oliver Watkus, a canvas painting expert who we had come in for a couple of days to do some advisory work with us on the approach we would take to doing the treatment. And that was a great day and a half of work with him. But here we are, slowly pulling these additions from the reverse of the painting. Again, small patches being removed. You can see old tears that were misaligned and not, had come apart. Next image. And now to the big problem, which was the cause of this whole project, or the reason for the whole project, is these tears. And you can see of the several months that it was hanging on the wall, the canvas curling away from, its plane. It's completely pulled apart and peeling backwards, sort of against itself. And on the underside, you can see the Japanese paper facings that I put on it in September. So here's an image showing just what the canvas looked like as we began working on this. So the first step in actually dealing with the tears was to remove those temporary facings that I put on the front of it. And we're just applying some moisture to the paper facings and gently peeling them off. The next stage was actually to flatten those tears. And here we are using a piece of blotter paper, which is a thick piece of paper that's been lightly dampened or sort of misted. And boards are put on it, and it's put under weights for about a half hour or so, a little bit more sometimes with weights. Then we remove that, put dry blotters on, and the idea is to get everything to lay down flat again so that we can work on the tears themselves. Next image. So one of the issues that we have with the fact that the painting tore and then was under stress like that. Oh, sorry, can we go back one? Just want to explain that for 1 second. On the previous slide, you could see on the top side was one of the tears with a gap in it. And yeah, you can see on the top there's the tear, a gap. That can't be pulled together. On a small painting, we might be able to, but we couldn't. So what we did was we actually cut inserts to fill those gaps, canvas inserts that go in there. I guess we've gone backwards for a second. Go forward again. Yes, you can see on the bottom, that's a piece of canvas that's been cut to fit in there. And if we go to the next slide, you'll see that we've inserted that into that gap. Ooh, we missed it anyways. I don't know what happened there. We think we're missing a slide. Anyways, those fills were put in there and the tears mended with Japanese paper from the reverse. Not long ago, we actually opened the space to the public, and there's been quite a bit of engagement with them asking questions of the Park Service people and ourselves there when we're there. And here's a scene basically from the stage, seeing the public engaging with us. Yesterday, after the painting is completely prepared, the tears are all flat, and you can see on the far left here, behind Travis, you can see the tears are all mended and flat. We're applying a heat set adhesive to the back of the painting. We spent the whole day applying 2 layers, the first one in the morning, the second one in the afternoon. And this adhesive basically activates by heat. It's in a solvent, or it was in a solvent yesterday. That's dried off. And when we line the painting, we're going to get a piece of canvas large enough for the whole thing, lay it on there, stretch it really taut on a special kind of stretcher, and then use hand irons, square foot by square foot, adhering the lining canvas to the back of the painting. And that will then get it ready for restretching onto a new stretcher, which we will order when we're ready to do that. That will be a better support than what it had. Here's a shot actually from the balcony. You can see how the back of the painting is now covered with this thin layer of adhesive that will be used to line the painting onto a new fabric support and ensure that it doesn't tear again for a long, long time. And I don't know if anybody has any questions or comments.
Gianfranco, I just
Yes,
would like
John.
to thank, as chair of the commission and on behalf of the commission, thank you for your sharing your expertise and an update on the conservation of this painting. I know that conservation is such meticulous and delicate work, and it's amazing to see the care that you and your colleagues working on this project have put into it. So on behalf of the commission and the city of Boston, thank you for caring so much for this object that is such a huge part of our cultural history here in the city. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It's great. I wanted to say at the beginning, everything we're doing is basic paintings conservation treatment. It's just on a whole other scale. I mean, the fact that we couldn't get the painting out of the building in the state that it was in to even treat it somewhere else. And I want to thank Paul and everybody from the Art Commission for their amazing support all through this process in terms of anything we've needed, we've gotten, and they've made it really easy for us to work on this scale, which is really fantastic. Thanks again.
Thanks so much for joining us, Gianfranco.
Pleasure. Thank you.
All. And just as an update, we are moving ahead with the conservation work, as Gianfranco just outlined, and we're continuing to collaborate with our friends and colleagues at the National Park Service and property management to fix the wall that is behind. So thank you, everyone, for helping bring this painting back. Cool.
Thanks, Paul. Well, as chair of the Art Commission, I'd now like to welcome everyone formally to this meeting. We now do have a quorum, so we can proceed with the deliberation portions and the voting portions of this meeting. So I call this public hearing to order at 5 o'clock. One moment. My computer just went a little crazy. Today, the commission is holding its monthly public meeting. Our meetings are generally held on the second Tuesday of every month, and we hope you'll continue to join us. We engage in discussions about public art in Boston in order to foster the creation and collection of artworks that reflect the people, ideas, histories, and futures of Boston, which is located on the traditional homeland of the Massachusetts people and the neighboring Wampanoag and Nipmuc peoples. We acknowledge the atrocities committed against Indigenous peoples, all of the communities that have been subsequently harmed, and the ways in which colonialism has created systemic oppression. We recognize the continuing presence of these communities and the Indigenous peoples represented in the city's residents, in addition to those in the diaspora. We also recognize that Boston exists as a result of the forced labor and economic extraction from enslaved African Americans. I'll now take roll call of the commissioners to confirm a quorum. After I state your name, commissioners, please say here. Cara is unable to make it today, as is Diana. Robert is unable to be here. Brian Hone.
Here.
Nigel Jacob.
Present.
James Mason.
Here.
Abigail Norman.
Here.
And I too am here, so we have a quorum, and we may proceed. So we've already reviewed Karen's director's report, so we will move along to, just moving the slides, our agenda items for review, public testimony, and commission vote. Here is how you can participate in today's meeting.
John,
If you
I'm
have any
sorry.
technical, sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but the review of the minutes.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Thank you. We got a little jumbled here. First, we'll now review meeting minutes from the September meeting. Do any commissioners have any comments or modifications they would like to make to the meeting minutes?
I do.
Oh, please go ahead, Abigail.
So I'd like to add to the minutes recognition of 3 requests that I made at the last meeting, just so that they remain on the record. First, for an orientation for new commissioners. Second, to inform commissioners of upcoming commission-related events. And third, to plan for the commission to meet with the new planning director. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Abigail. Those will be noted in the minutes. With those additions, I'd like to open a motion if any commissioner would like to make a motion to accept the September meeting minutes.
I move to accept the September meeting minutes with the revision that we just reviewed.
Thanks so much, Abigail. Do I have a second?
I can second.
Thanks, Brian. Commissioners, after I say your name, say yes if you approve. Brian,
Yes.
Nigel,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Abigail,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. So the motion passes and the minutes are approved with those additions. Thanks all. And now we'll move to agenda items. For review and public testimony, here is how you can participate in today's meeting. If you have any technical difficulties, you can ask questions in the chat and a member of staff will help you. When public testimony is requested, you can press the raise your hand icon and we will call on you. If you are calling in, press *9 to raise your hand. And at the suggestion of some of our attendees, we'll now take a few moments to take any questions surrounding public art or any activities of the Boston Public Art Commission. Richard, I see your hand up. Please go ahead. Oh, you're muted.
Thank you. 2 questions, please. One, progress reports update on the Emancipation Group. And number 2, has a dedication ceremony been scheduled for Brio, the great mural at Eggleton Square, Hernandez School?
Thanks so much for your questions, Richard. I'll pass this to either Karen or Paul to answer those questions.
Hey, hi Richard. First on the dedication for Bria at the Hernandez, we have been working to schedule it with the mayor's office, and I think that we have not been able to nail down a date. I can let you know. I can double check it, but I know we've been going back and forth with them to finalize a date because that is one that we were hoping the mayor would be able to attend. And I will update you if I can pull it up if I'm wrong, but I don't think we had a date yet. We've had a bunch of the other ones scheduled though. And then on Emancipation Group, it is in storage and we are finalizing a loan agreement for that one as we discussed before for the monuments exhibit.
Thanks so much for your questions, Richard.
Thank you.
Do any other members of the public have questions? Well, hearing none, move on with our agenda items.
John, I think we've got some hands up.
We do. Struggling.
Don, iPhone.
Hi, my name is Sean Quigley. I was just curious. That was a great presentation by John Franco. Really appreciate it. I was just curious if we had any updates on a rough timeline for the completion of the restoration of the Healy painting.
I'm happy to answer this. So the actual conservation of the painting is moving ahead to be completed in December, as has been communicated to the National Park Service. But as I mentioned in the report, we are figuring out the rest of the work with our colleagues regarding the wall, which at this current moment, we're not quite sure when that will be completed.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that update.
Thanks, Sean. Very good question. And now we'll move on to our other agenda items. Our goal in this meeting and for all of these conversations is to make a good experience for all. So please remember, if you do make comments, to keep them on topic, brief, and respectful of others. You can submit longer written testimony to bac@boston.gov. And if you're called on, please state your name, title, program, and organization if relevant. And I'd like to pass to Karen.
Great. So we have one item for vote today, and we're really excited. It's an accessioning. Paul, I think we can go to the slide with the image of the mural.
Karen, really
Sorry, give it.
quickly,
Yep.
do you want to do the accessioning or the vice chair vote?
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. We can do the vice chair vote first. So yeah, we have two items on the agenda today. We have a vote for vice chair, as I mentioned before. We lost Camilo for the commission, not as a friend or an artistic partner, but as a commissioner. So we will be voting for a new vice chair, and then we will be, after that, moving on to the accessioning of a mural, and we will give you some updates on Unmonument after that. And for the vice chair vote, the role of the vice chair, as many of you might know, is to support the chair in their operations of the Boston Art Commission. The chair has the authority to set the agenda for the commission and to determine who can speak when, to manage the operations and lead us in our monthly public meetings. The staff of the Mayor's Office of Arts and Culture works in support of the chair and the rest of the commission, and the vice chair, in addition to being supportive, will step in as chair when the elected chair is not able to attend. So we appreciate that this is a very important role and also shares some of those responsibilities that I outlined to make sure that we are able to give all the attention that this important work requires by these citizen volunteers on the commission. And with this, I think we'd be looking for anyone on the commission to make a nomination of a chair or a vice chair.
Thanks, Karen. I'd like to nominate James Mason as vice chair of the Boston Art Commission.
I don't know if I second that, but I also second that idea.
Any other commissioners have any nominations? Well, James, you have been nominated to serve as vice chair. So I feel we should proceed and make a motion to vote. So I would like to make a motion to appoint James Mason vice chair of the Boston Public Art Commission. And do I hear a second?
I will second that.
Thanks, Brian. Commissioners, after I state your name, please say yes if you approve the motion. Brian?
Yes.
Nigel?
Yes.
James?
So weird, but yes.
Abigail?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. Congratulations, James. Happy to have you serve as vice chair of this commission. Appreciate the work you've done so far and looking forward to working with you more in the future. So congratulations.
Thanks all.
Okay, Karen. Now we can move along to...
Now we'll do the mural.
Yes.
Yeah, we're really excited to welcome this mural into our collection, and Paul Zotov is going to lead us in the accessioning as our registrar.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Karen. So here we're very much looking forward to accessioning Anything Under the Sun, which is a long-term asphalt mural at Malcolm X Park by Sydney James. We commissioned artists to create murals on 3 of the basketball courts on the Malcolm X Park and the adjacent wall of the BCYF Shelbourne in Roxbury. Built in 1867, Malcolm X Park is one of the most expansive and programmed recreational parks. We commissioned this is the 1 out of 4 murals that was commissioned as part of the transformative art program in the 3rd year. These new murals are coming to the court, so please, I hope you can join us on Saturday, October 19th, as we celebrate them. And here is the mural that is painted. So our maintenance plan includes a visual inspection that has a biannual frequency during the spring and the fall. MOAC will check for damage, fading, or any incidents of vandalism, and then Parks or 311 will alert us of any other issues. Cleaning as needed on environmental conditions, and that will be done by gently power washing with water only. The sealant and varnish will be applied per the type of varnish that is listed out on the other side of our slide, and then it will be assessed by a conservator every 5 years to make sure that it is in tip-top shape. And just for our reference, the court itself is 50 feet by 80 feet. It's the 2nd court in the Malcolm X Park. And in preparation, the court was power washed, chalk was drawn to create the doodle grid, and then it was painted with Sherwin-Williams color top water-based solid color and Rust-Oleum. And then it was sealed with a Behr premium floor coating.
Thanks so much, Paul. I now open it up to commissioners for any comments or questions. Paul, I'm actually really curious to know that I know this mural is sort of painted to last and sealed, but over time, if there are any necessary touch-ups or repainting that needs to happen, is the artist committing to helping us with that, or would we hire another? How would that work in the future?
Yeah. So our artist warranty is for the 1st year, where the artist will be able to directly assist with any of these causes. And then after that, we will inspect it. And the team is a combination of both local and national artists. So we would be able to work with them, as always, with the artist leading kind of these conversations and advising us on best next steps and courses of actions. We had some concerns surrounding that, specifically surround the faces, and are kind of prepared, which is why we have all the paint numbers listed out there and kind of ready at the go if that is to become an issue.
Thanks, Paul. Any other commissioners? I'd now like to open up to any members of the public who'd like to ask a question or make a comment. Last chance. Well, hearing none, I'm really thrilled to ask one of the commissioners to make a motion to approve this artwork into our collection.
I'll make a motion to accept anything under the sun into our collection.
Thanks so much, James. Vice Chair James, I should call you. Do I have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Thanks so much, Abigail. Commissioners, if you agree with the motion put forward, please say yes when I call your name. Brian?
Yes.
Nigel?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
Abigail?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well, so the motion passes. Very, very thrilled to have yet another amazing court in our collection. and look forward to accessioning more as they're completed. So thanks to the artists and everyone who worked on this project. I know it's been a long time coming, but it looks great. And I hope many people get to enjoy both the artwork and playing on the court for years to come. So now I'll pass it again to Karen to discuss Unmonument.
Thank you, John. We're going to need one moment to switch slide deck. So if you can just give us a brief pause, we're going to switch in and out. So as we are preparing that, Paul is just switching. We had two very large slide decks to share with you today. I will give you a heads up that, Abigail, there are a lot of dates in here. And there are a lot of slides. There are too many slides. So we are going to move through these at a fairly rapid pace because we have so many amazing projects. And this is information that we will be sharing out in other forms as well, and we'll be publishing this information and getting these dates out to everybody. But we did want to make sure to share the many projects that we have coming.
Hey, Karen, are we still just waiting on that slide adjustment?
Yeah, I think Paul is just swapping it out. There we are. It's quite the color shift. Okay. So thank you, everybody. As I mentioned, there are a lot of slides here. There are a lot of people with us today who have contributed a ton of work here to be able to share this content with you today. We are very happy to be sharing round one of Unmonument, Transforming Boston. These are really exciting projects that will be happening across the city. As you may remember, Unmonument is a new initiative by the Mayor's Office of Arts and Culture in collaboration with many cultural leaders and artists across the city. And we are pursuing this work with a few different elements. A really important one that we're going to spend a significant amount of time previewing today are the temporary monuments. We'll also talk to you a little bit about the public conversations, and next month we'll be sharing more with you about other events that we have coming up in education and documentation and writing and publishing. So different aspects of the projects, all with the intention of inviting people to interact with the question of what our monuments should look like now and in the future, and imagine new ways of doing it, new forms and new narratives. And so we will move ahead into the temporary monuments, and we will first be sharing the artworks that came through our office through an open call that we put out last year. And the first of these is called Spray It Loud, Display It Proud by a trike called Funk. And there are 12 pieces that collaborating artists, graffiti artists, aerosol artists have created for a trike called Funk's Spray It Loud, Display It Proud initiative that have been happening over the summer and are continuing into December. And they will be working with a lot of different artists, many familiar names, and you can see here, Abigail, as I mentioned, there are a lot of events and times here. We can share these out in different formats. We will be publishing this information and having it up on our website, but did want to give you a sense of what's coming up. And on the next slide, you can see some of the amazing artists that they're working with. And again, many of these are familiar names and faces. And these projects have been happening across the city. Another project, I'll just say here, thank you, Aaron. Thank you for all this contribution. Each of these projects is trying to think about how monuments could take these different forms, as I was talking about. And so in this one, a tribe called Funk, who focuses often on music and dance, is bringing graffiti art into the conversation around monuments and thinking about how graffiti across the city really does contribute to our sense of place and history. Another project, Future Monuments to the Trees of the Public Garden, is by artist Kate Farrington. And hers is a socially engaged art project that is drawing upon place as medium and shared authorship to consider the value of the natural world in our public monument landscape. And in particular, she's focusing on trees. And obviously, as the title suggests, considering the way that trees make our landscape and act as monuments in themselves. She is collaborating with the Friends of the Public Garden and working with members of the public and through a series of workshops where people will be writing and sharing content and then publishing it through an augmented reality enhanced walking tour, which will be happening in November 9th through 11th. There'll be a celebration, but the different workshops you can see, one was September 28th, and then one will be October 26th, and then the launch November 9th to 11th. And she has some really beautiful text and images that she has shared with us. And again, we will make these accessible to you, and we'll be publishing these on our website so that you can spend more time with them and hopefully attend one of her workshops. Kate is the lead artist. You can see her here working with a team, communications and tech. And as I mentioned as well, she is working with the Friends of the Public Garden as a primary partner and considering how the project may expand to other neighborhoods and sites in the future. Another project we are supporting is Going to Ground with Larissa Rogers with Zalika Azim, which is curated by Audrey Lopez on the Greenway. Going to Ground is a site-specific project by Larissa Rogers responding to and engaging with the history of Zipporah Potter Atkins. In 1670, Potter Atkins became the first known Black woman to own a home in Boston. Her home rested on land now cared for by the Greenway at Cross and Hanover Street in Boston's North End. And this history was brought to light in 2010 by Dr. Vivian Johnson, Professor Emerita at Boston University, after 6 years of archival research. The site is marked by a structure fabricated with soil-coated steel and earthen blocks, collaboratively sourced through an open call for soil, which you may have seen across the city. And Going to Ground offers an echo of Potter Atkins' home that resonates with Boston's contemporary realities. And you can visit that project on the Greenway now. And the event that we in particular will be funding will be in 2025, and that will be the dance performance. You can see more images from the work they've been doing and some of the partners that they've been working with, including Zalika Azim, who is the dancer who will be working with Larissa Rogers for the event we'll be supporting. Another one of the projects that we are supporting through On Monument is the Gun Violence Memorial Project with Mass Design Group, Songa and Company, and Purpose Over Pain. And these are also available to be seen right now. You can visit the houses at Boston City Hall, which you can visit anytime City Hall is opening by entering through the 3rd floor, the main door, and going up the stairs to the 4th floor, or what we call the mezzanine. You can also visit them at the ICA. Here you can see it at City Hall. There are 2 at the ICA, and there is one at Mass's office, which you can also arrange to visit. The Gun Violence Memorial Project creates a space to gather and remember in light of the ongoing gun violence crisis. And the memorial comprises of these 4 glass houses, each built of 700 glass bricks, a reference to the average number of gun deaths every week in the United States in 2019, when the memorial initially opened. The average number of US weekly gun deaths in 2024 is now 840. The bricks hold remembrance objects such as baby shoes, graduation tassels, and photographs, and they've been offered by families to honor loved ones whose lives were taken by gun violence. These houses have been on view since August 29th, 2024 in Boston. They will be up until January 20th, 2025. There have been a few object collection events with community members who have brought in items honoring people that they've lost in their lives. And there is one more that will be happening Friday, November 15th from 1 to 5 p.m. and Saturday, November 16th from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. And that will be at Mass Design Group. And that is in collaboration, I should say, with the Louis D. Brown Peace Institute, who is a local partner for the project. And there will be a closing event with details to be determined. And we are also working with them on more community-facing events. Another project we have happening this fall, we're very excited about, is We Were Here Too by Roberto Maidi. This is a new media monument to colonial African Americans in Boston. It's a site-specific augmented reality experience in a colonial graveyard and a digital monument to a vanished Black community. The North End's Copp's Hill Burying Ground, founded in 1659, is a stop on Boston's famed Freedom Trail, which is visited by 4 million tourists a year. The cemetery contains over 1,200 marked graves of white residents, and below the surface, the unmarked remains of at least 1,000 African Americans. These days, just a handful of stones of Black residents remain. This multimedia project includes images, voice, video, text, and sounds. It will be accessible at the cemetery site by smartphone and worldwide to anyone with a web connection. And in this one, thinking about monuments and markers, it is a really sort of lovely connection and way to use augmented reality to tell the stories that we may be missing in our what we consider our historic sites across the city. You can see some images here. And again, this is much like Kate Farrington's. This is a project that will be using augmented reality to allow people to access the artwork. In this case, it's really interesting because as a cemetery, we are not permitted to put any physical installations in the space or even signage. So we are being very creative. Roberto is being really flexible, doing a ton of research, working with both the Parks Department and our archives folks and other historical resources in the city. There's Roberto, who was also, I got to know in 2015 or so through the Artist in Residence program. So he's been a long collaborator with the city of Boston. Another augmented reality project that's coming up is the Kinfolk Monuments Project with Idris Brewster. And this project is happening in 2025, so we have fewer details for it, but we have some preliminary dates and a schedule for it that you can see here. Born from a need for communities to reimagine public spaces on their terms, Kinfolk aims to introduce a series of 4 augmented reality commissioned monuments that spotlight stories of Black, Brown, and queer communities, stories often omitted from our collective memory. By leveraging location-based technology, the same cutting-edge AR technology that fueled Pokemon Go, Kinfolk will invite Bostonians to experience their city's history in a radically new and immersive way, fostering a collective ownership of their shared past and reimagined future through activations across neighborhoods. And here you can see next you can see a project rendering by Kinfolk, just as a sample of the work that they have done. And you can see their team here. This work is still in development, as I mentioned. Another one for 2025, although it has been happening for a few years, and we've been working with them, is Generation Peace Polls by Ruth K. Henry. For the past 2 years, Ruth has been an artist in residence at the Louis D. Brown Peace Institute, where she's worked alongside survivor Ambassador Alexis Smith and Generation Peace Poll team to develop a pilot peace trail along the route of the annual Mother's Day Walk for Peace. The Peace Trail is a collection of public artworks that transform pain through love, unity, faith, hope, courage, justice, and forgiveness. 7 inaugural Peace Trail polls in Dorchester now honor victims of violent crime and cultivate new cycles of peace in their names. For On Monument, Ruth proposed to expand the Peace Polls Trail, involving students from Madison Park High and the John D. O'Brien High School, who will create interactive poll installations representing peace principles in order to connect the communities of Dorchester and Roxbury. And we have a number of scheduled events for that project as well that we will be sharing. You can see the artists here, including Ruth Henry and Alexis Smith, who I mentioned, and George Alves, and other youth council members who will be working with them. Another project that we're working on for 2025 is The Lot Next Door with Geronzi Harris. The Lot Next Door actually developed originally through an artist in residence project that Geronzi developed with the Environment Department. And this is being produced in collaboration with a community of local neighborhood and artists and activists. It explores issues and dynamics at the intersection of community development, environmental justice, and social resilience through a retelling of a true story in which residents fight a proposed development lot on the corner of Woodrow Ave and Norfolk Street in Dorchester. The visioning and rehearsal process will build upon past engagement in organizations and communities in Dorchester. The public presentation will dynamically interact with the immediate community around the lot at Woodrow Ave. And you can see an image of the site will happen. Geronzi did host a play here just a couple years ago when she was an artist in residence. She closed off the block, put stands in. It was a really incredible example of local theater happening on site, on the site with neighbors as actors. And Geronzi is working with Company One. Africa will be collaborating with her and with our next project as well. So we have a really great set of projects between Geronzi and the next project, Boston Chinatown, Stories on the Streets, which I think we have maybe updated, the title may now be updated to Musical Song Cycle. But both of those artists, playwrights, are working with Company One, who is supporting hyperlocal theater through these projects and thinking about both projects, looking at neighborhood as monument. For Allison's project, she's building on community engagement and oral history work done by Company One's artists, Play Lab alumni, and frequent collaborators of the 2021 Boston Chinatown musical. The project will continue to uplift Chinatown's history, vibrancy, and perseverance in the face of gentrification and racial violence. The visioning and rehearsal space also will build upon engagement with organizations and communities in Chinatown, and the public presentation will span theater, dance, and song, and will dynamically interact with the immediate communities around the Chinatown Gate. And both of these will be theater taking place in public and focused on specific sites with their neighbors. And again, you can see Africa and Allison here.
Charging.
We're now going to look at some of the work happening with our curatorial partners. So that first series that you just saw, those were all in response to an open call we held. And now we're looking at work curated by Leonie Bradbury and Shanna Gar at Emerson Contemporary. Off the pedestal is an exhibit at their gallery that you can visit, the Media Art Gallery at Emerson Contemporary. And it is a multimedia group exhibition featuring visual artists Laura Anderson, Barbata, New Red Order, and Paula J. Wilson. And it is at 25 Avery Street. I highly recommend you stop in and visit it. It is a beautiful exhibition. And we have some images that you can see from the exhibit. Emerson will also be working with Camila Jinan Rashid on some installations across the city. They are finalizing plans to install artworks using MBTA advertisement spaces. And we will update you on that project as we get more information, but we're finalizing the lines that they will be advertising on. And we have another curatorial partner in NICOB, the North American Indian Center of Boston, their project Memorialization of Urban Indigenous Presence in the City of Boston. And they have been developing their work, and we will share just a few examples of that coming up. They, on Saturday, October 16th, they are having a social and dance at their site on South Huntington, 105 South Huntington. Actually, it looks like it's Saturday, October 12th. We have two different dates there, so we should double check which one those are. Could somebody double check that and put it in the chat? Which one is the Saturday? They are working with artist Geraldine Barney, who is working on a project Mother Earth Back, Landscapes of the Southwest. And you can see some examples of her work in the next slides. Thank you. Thanks, Ani. They're also working with Mia Johnson, whose project Portals Mending in the Multiverse, a series of miniature portals that share stories. Oh, sorry, Robert Peters. They're working with Robert Peters as well, local artist, and I believe maybe a Mattapan resident, if I remember correctly. And then they are working with Mia Johnson and her project, and they've been able to share some of the images from JP Open Studios that she shared. They will also be working on an archive project that we'll be bringing more information to you about soon. And then the Boston Public Art Triennial, they have installations at the Lot Lab on the theme of presence with Ife Franklin, Hugh Hayden, and Matthew Okazaki, which you may have hopefully visited in real life. They've been up since, I believe, May or June. And Lot Lab, as I hope you know, is an outdoor 24/7 experimental zone for site-specific contemporary public art created for the Boston community. This has been a really special place for artists to be able to experiment with temporary public art, and this year for the artists to develop projects on the themes of presence related to the program. And you can see some of the events that they had here, and we will review some of the images of the work. You can see Ife Franklin's piece there on the resurrection of Mark, Phyllis, and Phoebe. This project is telling a story that also required a lot of research. Of Mark, Phyllis, and Phoebe, who were enslaved African Americans in Charleston who conspired to poison the person who had enslaved them during the colonial period of 18th century Boston. And the resurrection reimagines the gibbet hanging from the hanging iron cage and Mark's final resting place as a floating cocoon wrapped in Nigerian dairy indigo dye textiles created using a variety of resist dye techniques. I highly suggest visiting in person. You can also see Matthew Okazaki's work here, which is in conversation and sight with Ife's piece that you just saw, which you can see here. You can see them in relation to each other. And we also have Hugh Hayden's piece, which is also located nearby within view, although not on the grass. His piece, Gulf Stream. The Boston Public Art Triennial has had a lot of great events and public conversations. We'll just briefly look at a few images of them here. And the Boston Public Art Triennial is building up to their big triennial event next year. And next we have work curated by Lani Asuncion, who is here with us tonight, I saw, from the Powell Arts Center. Artists Joanna Tam, Sheila Novak, Cass Lee, Wenho Tian, Maria Fong Duan, Stephanie Lee, Caitlin Lipton, Anita Yip, and Ying Ye. So we have a big group of artists working on projects with POW, and we have information about many of them here. And a lot of dates have passed. They've been very active, and we have more coming up with them and some really beautiful images of their work. And so we'll move through those. I should also say that through their curatorial process, as I said, Lani is the curator, but they also did an open call. So you could see that they had a community engaged process for selecting projects. Another one of our curatorial partners is the National Center of Afro-American Artists, curated by Barry Gaither, the executive director there. The project that they are leading is Cancel Violence, with Hakeem Rakib, Janetta Tinker, Pro-Black, Paul Goodnight, Robert Stell, Larry Pierce, Shea Justice, and Lemerchi Frazier. And they are considering commemoration, that interaction, especially when expressed via monumentalization. They've traditionally focused on the great white heterosexual man. Women, people of color, and other outsiders have been generally invisible, irrespective of their contributions and sacrifices. That truth applied strongly in Boston. In this project, they are joining the challenge to the great man and looking to celebrate the worth of those who have been left out of that narrative. And they've invited artists to give imaginative shape to the problem of violence in particular, especially among youth, and what can be done to curtail it. They've asked them to comment on the source of violence and to project futures without it. And here you can see a series of conversations that they're planning. These are really complementary to the conversations we've been having at the Embrace this summer and are planning for next summer. So there will be public conversations in response to existing monuments in Boston. And you can see some of the dates for those. And again, we'll share those with you. You can see samples of the artists, many of the artists who I named, their works here. If we can move through these, you can see the artists. Jamel Eversley is working with Barry Gaither. And there is Barry. We also wanted to briefly highlight some of the research and development grants that we gave out this year. These we granted to artists directly. This was also through the open call that we put out for artists who presented us with projects that we wanted to support the development of, and we expect many of them to be submitted when we reopen the call this fall for 2025. One that we're excited about all of these. One we'll kick off with that we're very excited for is Elevar la Cultura by Victor Quinones. Only one Victor. But Victor Marca 27 Quinones. And you can see a little bit about his expected schedule here. As I said, Victor is using this funding to support the development of his project. This will be installed at City Hall above the Civic Pavilion is the site that we have been working with him on. And he's developing a large Mayan pyramid comprised of coolers, cultural textiles, spiritual objects, and flowers activated with a mural and projection. The golden structure adorned with mirrored acrylic symbols and a monochromatic painting of an indigenous Mayan woman will highlight the resilience of immigrant communities in Massachusetts by transforming ice coolers into symbols that comment on the duality of this everyday object as a relic of survival, but also the respite of the American dream, turning this into a shrine or ofrenda that honors and celebrates immigrant contributions to both culture and labor. Yes, since you can see here what the expectation is for the project, and we're really excited to be moving this project forward. Yeah. So these will all be coolers. And Victor is also hoping to be able to have a number of events that happens in that activate the space and engage with community members. The next project that we have granted a research and development grant to is 1975, a Vietnamese diaspora memorial by Ngoc Tran Vu. Who is developing an evolving interactive memorial to be developed to reflect the Vietnamese diaspora experience and intergenerational stories. This is a community-driven and culturally informed project that will honor the families and communities affected by the war in Vietnam and its legacy, while encouraging personal and collective reflection. The temporary memorial is set to be unveiled in Dorchester in 2025, marking the 50th anniversary, commemorating the war's end and paying tribute to its enduring legacy. And you can see some dates here. Tran has been really organizing at an incredible level, working with a lot of community members, getting a lot of community input into her project. You can see a picture from her event and some of the content developed through the community workshop. Tran is using this research and development funding to develop her sculptural practice. And here you can see some images from her studio where she's developing her concept for the temporary monument, which she is also seeing as a way to experiment with the concept of a long-term monument eventually. And you can see some of her notes. And she is also working with with a team and with community support. So we can just move through these. And the next project that we gave a grant to is Crispus in July by Lauren Woods. This is a project with a long title, Crispus in July, Requiem for a Revolutionary, aka Monument to the American Lacuna, aka a series of interventions and meditations in public spaces to contemplate freedom trails and trials of colored citizens of the world but in particular and very expressly those of the United States of America. This is a project that you may have been familiar with. It was proposed originally in 2019. Lauren was working with Now and There, and gosh, I want to say the Bostonian Society, but I know that's not what they're called now. I apologize. But working with the old State House, Revolutionary Spaces. Sorry. Thank you, Kate. Yeah, so Lauren had been working with Nat and Kate and many others over there, and then COVID happened, and their project obviously was delayed, and she has returned and to a monument for a grant to help reimagine what her project might be now. And one aspect of the project that she's really interested in is rope making. So there will be activations and events happening as her project is proposed, tied to the life of Crispus Attucks, and some of the events will happen, I think, outside in the space, and potentially some activities inside the old State House. You can see some images here, and there's Lauren. And I know we are tight on time. On the Prowl is another project that we are excited. Brixie is an artist whose work we really love. We usually are working with her in 2D, but she's using this opportunity and this grant to develop her proposal for On the Prowl, which is a monument to spiritual and cultural practitioners proposed to be installed in the bear dens at Franklin Park. And it's both reimagining the Egyptian Sphinx and exploring the Black Panther legacy in Boston and history in Boston in particular. And you can see her proposed development there. You can see a few more images of her project and concept. Again, these funds were for research and development, so it is still very much in process. Another project that we have given a grant to is a project that will be inspired by a People's Monument by Cedric Douglas. Cedric has developed this work. Sorry, next slide. Cedric's developed this work as a concept related to the idea of democracy and voting, planning on having activations take place this November in relationship to the election, and would like to speak to people about what they might imagine to take the place of the Emancipation Group. This ties back to work that he did in 2020 related to the plinth that was once held the Christopher Columbus statue, which you may have seen. And here is a rendering of what he might imagine someday being installed in the place of the Emancipation Group at the plinth. But his research and development will be talking to people and having interviews with them about what they imagine and who they imagine might be honored. The next project is Dean 5, Ricardo Gomez's project. This project is tied to Roxbury. It's one that he hopes to imbue with the essence of the original Roxbury Love mural, which he created, which was removed without notification to the community or the artist or our office. And so we have been in conversation with Ricardo for many years about potentially commissioning a new interpretation of Roxbury Love. And as you can see here, Ricardo's very interested in working with the Roxbury Library. And you can see an image here of what he might imagine to be a new version of the mural. It is still in development, but you can see, if you go to the next slide, you can see what that might look like, a version of it might look like. And it is still very early. So he is doing that research. And there's Ricardo. And another one of our grants has been to Fatima Sek, who is developing the Ella Collins Gratitude Project. And she is working to really research Ella Collins Little's life and legacy. Ella Collins was the sister of Malcolm X, a Bostonian with whom he lived for part of his life. And Fatima's especially interested in looking at the principles of her life, especially tied to education and working with young people. And she is planning a 2-day experience, gratitude ceremony and celebration to happen at her house at 72 Dale Street. And you can see just some examples of her work and the artist herself. And lastly, we are working with Tanya Bergera, who is still developing her project, which is titled In Progress, an Immigrant's Monument. She is working with Design Studio for Social Intervention on a project looking at sites around Dorchester, in particular around Upham's Corner, to tell the story of immigrants in that neighborhood. And those are the temporary monuments that we have in development now. We did also want to update you on the public conversations that we have held in collaboration with our partner, Brandon Terry from the Hutchins Center. And we've had 3 talks this summer. You can see some images here. We had one on the topic of poetry, public art, and the politics of memory with Professors Joshua Bennett and Imani Perry, hosted by Brandon Terry. You can see some images from that event here. It was a really beautiful event. This took place July 31st. And we have some really beautiful photos by photographer Malachi Pearson. We had our second event on August 21st, Black Lives, Black Stories, Our History, the African Diaspora in New England with Professors Kendra T. Field and Carrie Greenwich, hosted by Kiara Singleton. You can see also in these photos that we have been having free public dinners after each conversation so that people can continue to speak to each other about the work. And the last one we just had, September 30th, The Future of American Democracy with Professor Michael Sandel in conversation with Brandon Terry. And lastly, we will be returning to you with more information coming up on education and signage, which is being developed with the Massachusetts College of Art and Design, with faculty, staff, and students there. We are doing writing and publishing on the artworks and the events with the Boston Art Review, and we will have community engagement happening at those dinner and other places with Payal Kumar. And we will be releasing in early mid-November round 2 call to artists. That is your update on Monument.
Thanks so much, Karen. It's great to see the full breadth of everything that's happening the first year of On Monument, and looking forward to seeing all these projects come to life and exploring these unique histories and stories of Boston that are either less frequently or rarely, if ever, told. So thank you for the update, and I hope you'll keep us posted as more develops. Our last order of business for this evening is adjournment. So I'm curious if any commissioner would like to make a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
As always, I would like to make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you so much, James. Do I have a second? Abigail,
Seconded.
Oh, thanks, Nigel. Commissioners, when I call your name, please say yes if you agree with the motion. Brian?
Yes.
Nigel?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
Abigail?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. So the motion passes and we are adjourned. Thank you all so much for joining us. Karen, thank you for those updates. Gianfranco for his really amazing recap of the conservation work. And hopefully we'll see you all next month. Until then,
Thank
thanks.
you.
See y'all.